VRChat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission? To seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts. To discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind. And to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
All right, welcome everyone to Gunter's Universe. How's everybody doing out there?
Woo! Doing great, Gunter.
We got Rick Sanchez in the house, Star Fox, Bubba Fett's always here every week. It's always great in VRChat, tons of fun. For those of you that are new, Gunter's Universe is a weekly VR talk show attended and recorded in VRChat. People all over the world gather every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, using their VR headsets to be a part of the live experience. Anyone can join using their HTC Vive or Oculus Rift, or even just on your desktop monitor. Come on in, it's free, and we'd love to have you here during the show. All right, my guest tonight is Christina Heller. She is the CEO of VR Playhouse. VR Playhouse is a creative studio specializing in immersive content for VR, and it's based in LA. They have a diverse background covering theater, documentary film, journalism, and event production. The VPR team combines technical expertise with years of experience in experimental storytelling and world building. Christina, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I am so good, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all of these beautiful avatars who have joined us in person tonight. This is the coolest thing.
It's so cool. I love it. All across the world, too, so much fun. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. And, of course, with me is Bob, a.k.a. Cause and Effects. He's the co-host. What's going on, Bob?
Not too much. How about you?
Short and sweet.
That's right. Not too much. We're doing a talk show. It's cool. Yeah, Bob's here every week. We have a lot of fun. Bob brings us the news, so he's going to read us a couple news stories, and Christina, feel free to chime in at any time, and then we'll have an interview with you. I'd love to, find out all about VR Playhouse afterwards. So, Bob, take it away with the news.
Certainly. Good evening. I'm Cause and Effects, bringing you the top headlines in VR news from this past week. Our top story from its news desk last week, AMD, not Amazon, that's another story. AMD unveiled the company's strategy for its upcoming Polaris architecture-based Radeon RX series graphics cards, introducing impressive levels of VR performance and future-proof technologies at a variety of price points. The Radeon RX 480 delivers premium VR capability at a stunning price starting at just $199 US for the 4GB edition. Set to launch and availability on June 29th, the Radeon RX 480 will deliver the world's most affordable solution for premium PC VR experiences, delivering VR capability common in $500 GPUs. In a notable market survey, price was a leading barrier to adoption of VR. $199 starting set for select Radeon RX series GPUs is an integral part of AMD's strategy to dramatically accelerate VR adoption and unleash the VR software ecosystem. AMD expects the aggressive price will jumpstart the growth of the PC VR TAM and accelerate the rate at which VR headsets drop in price.
I love this. More affordable VR for people. I mean, if you have an okay computer that maybe doesn't have the $500 graphics card that you needed to run sweet VR, now you can buy a graphics card at $200 or soon. So I think that's fantastic news. More competition. Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, this should bring the PC pricing down to definitely a much more affordable rate. I mean, $199 for a graphics card, that's like mainstream gamer pricing levels.
Right.
Alright, so next up, in other news, Valve has released the lab renderer for Unity 5.4 on the Unity Asset Store. From the Steam VR news section in the Steam community, Valve posted, quote, The lab renderer is what Valve used in all of its Unity-created experiences in the lab, everything except robot repair. We are shipping this for free to Unity developers as an example of how we think current generation VR rendering can provide the highest fidelity experiences with the best performance. This isn't a complete rendering solution that is meant to replace Unity's extensive rendering features, but it does provide all of the features Valve used to ship the lab. We're providing all of the source code and shader code so developers can modify it to best fit their needs. Features this renderer provides above the standard Unity renderer include single pass forward rendering and MSAA, adaptive quality, custom shaders, and GPU flushing. As a side note, Valve has also released an update to the lab entitled Appliance of Science Update. Key new features include endless waves for Longbow and Zortex, and global leaderboards for Longboard, Zortex, and Slingshot. Tracer Core.
Love leaderboards. I love that now I'm going to be able to compete in Longbow and those games. Sweet.
Yeah, so that just came out.
Yeah.
Next up, from its blog, Epic has announced 3 new features related to virtual reality in the Unreal Engine 4.12 release. First is a preview of the VR editor. This is a forward-looking feature that allows you to freely navigate your worlds in VR using motion controllers. You can select and move actors, place new objects, and even access the editor's UI, all while immersed in VR. This feature currently requires either an HTC Vive or Oculus Touch development hardware. The second new feature is support for Google's new Daydream platform. UE4 includes full support for the platform, including the motion controller that comes with every Daydream set.
Oh, cool.
Look at that. Cool.
If you don't have a Daydream developer kit yet, you can still get started using the same plugin you can create Google Cardboard apps. Features that require a Daydream phone will simply be turned off on other Android devices. And the third new feature is preview support for OSVR. UE4 now supports OSVR out of the box. OSVR software platform allows a wide variety of VR and AR devices and peripherals to talk through a common layer to the engine. For more information on the platform and supported devices, visit osvr.org. In other engine news, last week on its AWS blog, Amazon announced Lumberyard Beta 1.3, which includes support for VR game development and new VR devices. Quote, "Our VR implementation uses Lumberyard's gems, which is a self-contained packages of assets and features that you can drop into your game. Lumberyard Beta 1.3 includes gems for both the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive. Moreover, these gems serve as a template for customers to build their own gems and support any VR device they want. Gems make adding support for new VR devices easy, with no engine code editing required. Developers won't have to wait for an official patch or plugin to start using commercial devices or prototype dev kits as they hit the market. The Lumberyard 1.3 beta editor will have full VR preview support built in. VR Preview utilizes the same gem system as the engine runtime, and it works in a similar fashion. We've added the VR Preview button to the editor, which you can click on to see VR right away. This allows developers to make VR-specific adjustments to their level designs right in the editor, which reduces iteration time. The 1.3 beta is expected to be released in a few weeks.
Cool.
E3 is next week, and rumors have been circulating that Microsoft and Nintendo could announce VR or AR support for their console platforms.
Right.
Sony has announced its demo lineup for the show floor for the PSVR. These titles include Eve Valkyrie, Harmonix Music VR, Headmaster, Res Infinite, Super Hypercube, Thumper, Wayward Sky, 100-Foot Robot Golf, Battlezone, and Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin.
Oh, nice. I haven't even heard of some of those, so that's pretty cool to check out.
Mm-hmm. And finally, In celebration of Father's Day, Samsung is giving away Gear VRs again for its Galaxy Note 5 and the S6 and 7, along with the Edge and Edge Plus variants. The promotion is for purchases between June 1st and 19th, and the claim form must be filled out by June 30th. For more information, visit samsungpromotions.com/Father's Day. And that does it for the news this week.
Free VR, yay! Nice. There it is. All right, cool. Thanks, Bob. Christina,
You're welcome.
we met not at SBVR first, but through a video call, or it was a podcast, the VR Scout podcast. Malia Probst, a lovely woman that we both love and hold dearly. She's such a personality. She's such an inspiration, and just that was super cool to hang out with you on that podcast. And then, not too much longer, I get to go to SVVR and see you there, and you get to check out the VRChat booth. So it's been wonderful to meet you and learn about the work that you do.
Thank you, and likewise.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, kind of pre-VR or pre-VR Playhouse.
Sure. So before VR Playhouse, I was a documentary filmmaker and journalist. After graduating college, so when I was in college, I had a radio show. I had a political podcast that was called You Are Here, that new topic every week, multiple produced pieces on that topic, and we won 2 AP awards for our work on that show. And so I thought for a minute that I would go into public radio, because I really loved radio, and I loved discussing and exploring issues and meeting people. But then once I got involved with public radio a little bit more, I realized what a small, at that time, I mean, it's branched out a lot actually since then, since the kind of blowing up of podcasts, but at the time it felt like a very small world and a very closed network. And I realized that there were only a few people who really were working at a very high level in public radio, and those jobs were extremely competitive given just how few there were. So that was when I moved to video, and I started, it basically taught myself Final Cut Pro and started becoming a bit of a one-man band in video, and that led to my first job out of school, which was as a reporter and then quickly as an anchor at a local TV station in the Boston area. So I was doing everything from on camera to behind the camera to producing, just all of it. But pretty quickly, even though I loved doing the on-camera stuff, I realized that I didn't want to make a career out of that because it was just too looks-oriented, and I just knew that would make me a crazy person. Like, it already was making me a crazy person, having to think about what I looked like all the time. And so that was when I started making a more concerted effort to becoming a filmmaker, and then started my own production company on the East Coast with the rapidly evolving tools that were coming out for people to make content easily with, which at the time was like the DVX100, if you remember that camera. It was mini DV, and then I started building a small production company and doing independent journalism. And so then I worked at this TV station in Boston for a while, and I started working with Current TV, which was Al Gore's attempt at sort of citizen journalism in the mid-2000s, and became a regular contributor. Yeah, became a regular contributor for them, and did a lot for the 2008 election cycle, because I was living in New Hampshire then at the time, so I got to do all the primary stuff, and then during the primaries, during these pieces, I discovered a thing called the Free State Project in New Hampshire, which is a libertarian initiative to get as many libertarians concentrated in a single state as possible. And I was fascinated by this group, and I decided I made a short documentary about it for Current, and then decided I wanted to do a feature about it. And so that became my first feature documentary, which was about these libertarians moving to New Hampshire, and that is now free on YouTube if people want to watch it. And that's what got me out to Los Angeles. I needed some help editing it, and I had some friends from college living in Los Angeles, and they were like, if you come out here, you can edit it. We can help you edit it.
The name of that's Libertopia?
Libertopia, yeah. And so then once I stepped foot in Los Angeles, I realized the moment I stepped out of my car, I was never going back to the East Coast. And So I've lived in Los Angeles ever since, and then moved on to executive produce a second documentary, which is where I met our production director, DJ, and it was called Reversing the Mississippi, and it looked at two organizations, one called Open Source Ecology in Missouri, which is a very cool open source technology company, and then a big urban farm in New Orleans. And that film also was another Herculean independent documentary effort that recently premiered on PBS. So here I was, I think I was just about to turn 30, and I went and I wanted to go to the Sundance Film Festival. I'd never gone, and so that was going to be my 30th birthday present to myself. And I got a place to stay and convinced some of our core creative, our friends who we also collaborate with a lot, to go to Sundance. And that was my husband Ian and Dylan, who's now our creative director, and then a few other people. We all went to the Sundance Film Festival, and that was when we tried the DK1. So to give some more context, Dylan and Ian had been involved with theater for a decade. They had been running theater companies. Ian had worked in Chicago as the artistic director of a great company there, and then him and Dylan ran this theater company in Los Angeles for 5 years that was exclusively dedicated to bringing new work. That was all they did. They didn't do any revivals or anything like that. And then in the past 2 years, they had been moving to theater without seats, immersive theater. They had just done a site-specific piece at a hotel in Los Angeles. And so we were all at this perfect point where we were ready for something new, and we tried the DK1, and that was it. And Ian in particular was just very obsessed, because that's kind of what person he is. He gets very obsessed. And so he came home and ordered the DK1 immediately and started looking into how you make 360 videos. And then I caught the bug pretty fast as well, and by July of 2014 we had officially founded VR Playhouse with a very small group of our favorite people. And then it was just that excitement and energy around creating VR content and wanting to make really cool VR content that we ended up attracting all the right people at the right time. And it just felt like this, we kept saying, like, we felt like we had angels. It just, the team, right when we would need somebody, we'd get this incredible person. And so it's just continued to sort of snowball and snowball and snowball from there. And now we have this amazing company that does everything from 360 video to CGI, interactive, and I think, and we've been doing it full time, for, let's see, I mean, going on. I think we went officially full time in the beginning of 2015. So the fact was we were able to do it we've been able to do this thing for a whole year and a half, and we didn't take any investor money. We just built it from the ground up with jobs. So it was, so that's kind of the whole story.
And so, you guys do all kinds of stuff, production of animation, journalism, the theater stuff, and live events. Really, I love that, because in a way, in the VR world here and what I'm doing with events and shows, and we've even played with theater, trying to do some sort of theater stuff, it's just really cool. It comes down to storytelling in VR, and that's obviously a big topic in the VR space right now, and you guys are in the thick of it, thinking about these issues and working on these problems. And you also, a lot of your projects span more than just, like, you have commercial, live sports, cinematic narrative I was reading, and even high-end real estate. So you guys do so many things. Some of these things we can see, these 360 videos, others are client work or things that I couldn't find easily. So that's really, really cool that you guys have been making your VR dream come true.
Thanks. The company in some ways has two completely different but complementary personalities. There's the creative studio side and the production services side. The production services side is pretty straightforward. You need or want to make VR content. We have a really effective and reliable pipeline that we've developed that we can make VR content with, that from everything from creative through production to post and distribution. And so that's part of the reason we have a diverse set of work that we did last year. Was we're not exclusive about that. If as long as you can pay the bid, we will make the piece for you. And so for us, and it was exciting. Everything we did was something different, something new. But then there's the creative studio side, and that's the real heart of the company. That's where we want to become a part of this growing conversation about storytelling and experimenting and making interesting content for VR. And the challenge for us, as I'm sure many developers can understand, was that especially if you were doing anything on the cinematic side, but even in CGI and game engine too, that it's expensive to make this stuff, or it was very expensive. And so it was easy enough to make a piece of client work like an action sports video when we had a company paying for it. But to do highly experimental storytelling work inside our own company, and we weren't, to be fair, we could have done stuff with the Rico Theta or things like that. But, to do the highly experimental stuff, we couldn't pay the team enough that we needed to be able to do it. So projects just kept getting, our independent projects kept getting backburnered. They would get shot and then they'd sit on hard drives. And so as a result, what's nice is now there are projects that we've been working on for over a year that are finally going to see the light of day this year, because the stitching, stitching tools became a lot better. We were able to stitch things much more quickly, and now finally we got our GoPro Odyssey camera with the Google Jump algorithm.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and
Incredible.
So now it's like game on, because the stitching algorithm is fantastic. So suddenly all of these crazy ideas that we've been writing and developing, and part of what we do at VR Playhouse is we develop a lot of ideas in-house, but we also love to partner with writers and playwrights and artists, and we've been actively developing the sort of creative roster for the last 8 months, and suddenly these projects look viable, like things we can actually do in spare time and on the weekends because we have this new system. So I'm really excited for 2016 and 2017 inside VR Playhouse for the chance for us to do some of that storytelling that we've been excited about trying.
Can you tease any of it? Where are you guys trying to go?
Sure. So we've noticed, and I'm sure all of you are aware, that content these days, and especially content that there's a market for, falls into about 4 tiers. There's the straight 360 video tier, which is the easiest in some ways to make and the most widely accessible to a broad audience. Then there is 360 interactive, like we saw with the Gone piece on Milk VR, and that is a little bit more challenging, so it's a little more expensive, but it also is more exciting because you're starting to play with interactivity and choice, which is the promise of what we've been starting to discuss about multilinear storytelling. And then from there you have something like what we did with The Surrogate, which was a piece we made, which was one of the original pieces that we did get to make last year and was nominated for an Innovation Award at South by Southwest this year, that blended 360 video inside the game engine, and it also had interactivity. So there's that, which is a blend of both. And then finally you have the full game engine CGI experience, which is pretty, especially if it's anything interactive. Obviously you can only do it on the high-end headset. So, but there's a potential for monetization there that's pretty great. People actually pay for content on Steam and for the high-end headsets. Yeah. But it is a smaller, you're going to be reaching a smaller group. So so you kind of have to think about your creative, I think, in one of those sort of categories, and then it affects the story, and then it also affects who you're going to partner with to fund it, and then your eventual distribution plan. So we have projects that fall into all of those categories. There's a project that we've been developing with a group of a comedy group that does a lot of YouTube stuff called the Clunes. They're really, really funny and creative people that are also burners like we are at VR Playhouse, so we love them. And so we've been developing an interactive mystery comedy. So like Gone, where you have interactivity and hotspot that help you figure out the mystery, but unlike Gone, which is very dramatic, this is very lighthearted and funny and takes place inside a restaurant at its grand reopening.
Cool.
So that's one piece we're excited about, and we have a piece that's premiering actually on Tuesday That's a music video. It's a 360 video, but it is all CG. And we're incredibly excited about that one. And Wired is going to premiere it. So keep your eyes peeled for that on Tuesday. And then our plan is to go to the upload party downtown that night and celebrate its release. If you live in LA, come to the upload party. So, and then, so I don't know if I could go on and on. I don't know if that's what you want me to do, but we have a lot of projects. We're really excited about each of them in their own way. And so, for the 360 video projects, like there's one of the ones we've been developing that I want to make for Sundance. It's a narrative that takes place from the eyes of a 6 to 8 year old girl who just moved into her grandmother's house with her mother, and you see the world in a very impressionistic way. She has an imaginary friend. That's a piece that we can make really with no funders. We have enough actor friends and theater friends that we can make this piece in our weekends and submit a nice 6 to 8 minute film for Sundance next year. That could also serve as a pilot. If it's well received, we could turn it into something more episodic. For something like the piece with the Clunes, the restaurant piece, we do need funding for that, and we're looking at some of the emerging platforms to finance 6 to 8 episodes of that for their platform. And I'm still not sure exactly how that works in terms of ownership, like whether they own it then if they finance it, or whether there's some share on that, but there's that. And then for the more high-end projects, like this one that we are doing called Defying the Nazis, that is a World War II piece, it's a real prestige piece it's based on a Ken Burns documentary. It's still in very early development stages, but for that we are looking for more traditional investors, because this will be a more robust, large interactive experience which we would sell on the Steam store. And so in that case, because there is a potential for some real revenue if if people pay to download it, that you can look for the same kinds of investors as a traditional film might. So it's all just, you have to think about all those things when you're trying to make this stuff.
It's interesting. So you got to see what sticks. Nobody knows yet. Nobody's had a 6 to 8 episode of something on one of these platforms. So it's very exciting to hear about some of the new stuff that you guys are working on. That surrogate piece, I saw some stuff on your blog about that. I don't believe that was something we can try. You had to be at Sundance. Is that correct?
Yeah, we haven't released it yet. But the basic premise was this, and I'll say we worked with a director named Peter Flaherty on it, and Logan Brown. They produced it. The story of Surrogate, he came to us with this idea, which was, your character has experienced a nervous breakdown as a result of too much AR, VR, and she has retreated into the walls of the home in which she used to occupy, and they've hired a surrogate to act out her life for her. And it takes place in the not too distant future, and they're supposed to be a wealthy couple. And so you are this woman inside the walls of the house, and you can navigate the hallways. And at the end of each hallway is a portal that when you stick your head into it, a 360 video plays out inside each room of the house. And you're watching the strange and uncomfortable relationship of your former husband and your new surrogate. So it's a very interesting psychological drama that when we were finished with it, I thought really could be a cool template. Whether or not the story, the story is very unusual and interesting, but even if the story wasn't your favorite, this is being able to peer inside the rooms of a house and navigate like that. You could put anything inside those rooms, and so it's been a fantasy of mine to take that and a template and apply it to different stories. So hopefully we'll get Surrogate out this year at some point. Again, as an independent project that we produced in-house. we have to always find extra resources to, fund work on it. And so, again, getting it ready to actually release on the Steam store, it seems to always get backburnered to new stuff. But we will get it out one of these days. And then, like I said, I would love to do something fun, like a crazy house party, where every room you went into, there was just something ridiculous and incredible happening. So that's the story of the circuit. And like I said, it was nominated at South by Southwest for an Innovation Award against some other interesting companies. Like we were up against the Nokia Ozo as the actual camera, and and also the Mills Stitcher. And the other piece of content we were up against was Project Syria. The piece that ended up winning was the Mills Stitcher. But what we were specifically nominated for was just this idea of the immersive hemispheres as a way of telling a story in VR. So that was cool for us, and every time we get to show it, it's always a pleasure. And like I said, hopefully one day you guys will all get to see it.
Cool.
Did you bring any trailers for us to watch tonight?
Well, that's kind of up to me, actually, and my web panels are broken when it comes to showing video content, so I just have the Playhouse website playing, and luckily it's this awesome animation on the on the homepage. Yeah. So it really looks great in the background. But in the future, hopefully, we can explode everything and go into one of the 360 experiences that our guests may have. So that's for the future. We have lots of work to do around here too.
Yeah.
Okay, other 360 videos, I saw a Honda project that you did, or a piece, and it was really cool. There was a guy, basically a one-man band performance where there's different takes that, well, I'll let you describe it, but it was really mind-blowing and a really cool music video.
Sure. So the Honda music video piece was a collaboration with a company, Missing Pieces, and we worked with an artist called Moses Sumney who loops. He's a looping artist. And the concept of the piece is that every time Moses loops an instrument, he duplicates himself. And so by the end of the video, there are 17, I believe, Moses Sumneys around you, all performing a different action inside that loop. And it was a very technically challenging piece, but one that we were very proud of the result of when it finally was finished. And then what was also interesting to me was that it got it got a ton of hits. And Honda didn't really put any press behind it. There wasn't a big press release or anything done when the video came out, and yet we had, I think, 4 million hits between Facebook and YouTube in less than a month. And I blame that on a couple of things. One, I think that, Honda did release it on their YouTube page and their Facebook page, so they have a built-in network of a lot of people. But two, I think 360 videos genuinely get more attention right now than a framed video. If someone sees it, they are more inclined to be like, what is this? And scroll around. And some independent studies have come out that have said that the numbers, I think, it's about 30% higher for 360 videos, and then also double the amount of people actually watch the videos till the end. So for us that was really exciting, and also the song was cool. The concept was great, and so I was still pretty surprised to see that, because even we did post-production on the Lion King Circle of Life piece. And this Honda piece got even more traction than that, so which was just really interesting to me.
Yeah, maybe it had to do something with your star there, because he's super talented. Maybe cool video though. Maybe it's just the cool factor.
Yeah, maybe it's the cool factor. Maybe it's the Honda thing. And what's also nice is Moses had a pretty active following already, but then I've noticed that, I don't know if it's because of the video or something, they've started playing his song on KCRW here in Los Angeles. So I'm crossing my fingers that maybe the song will actually rise to more prominence, and then maybe even more people will watch the video then if they know the song. So
yeah, so technical how you stage when he's going to duplicate himself so it looks natural, and just the changes in the next loop and how that's going to play out. And like one of the sections is he walks past the Honda door and shuts it, and that's part of one of the sounds in that loop. So it's very visually active. I mean, it's all around you. It's close to you. It's stuff happening everywhere. It's a really great video.
Totally. And that particular cut that you just mentioned was a really big challenge. Like there were a couple issues with it that made it a really, really hard thing to get perfect. And so it's so funny. You work on these pieces sometimes and you get a little bit of PTSD. And like you just mentioning that, I got some PTSD about the car door. It's like I just remember how many conversations we had about the car door and how much time it took. But in the end, we got it. We got it.
It's obviously worth it if that's the first thing I kind of referenced. Obviously
totally.
It was worth adding
yeah,
that
totally.
little layer piece in there. Cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Circle of Life. The Lion King 360 video is also very cool. I've never really checked out any of the Lion King on Broadway stuff, and so, man, I'm right here up on the stage, or I'm behind the stage, sort of, and I love getting to see behind-the-scenes stuff. Some of the coolest stuff I've seen in 360 just give me that perspective behind the scenes, and just, I would never get that otherwise. So really cool. And I guess, was that a Jaunt camera? Did I see like the partnership with Jaunt there?
No, that you're confused, but that's okay. We did that was a piece that we did with a company, Total Cinema 360, based in New York. They produced the piece and did all of the shooting because, well, for a lot of reasons, but because they are in New York. And we did. So we took they shot that with the Freedom rigs, all Freedom rigs, and actually Freedom 360 / Concept VR and Total Cinema 360 have formed, I think, a sort of alliance now. I think they're basically, I don't know if they're the same company or if they just work a lot together, but anyway, so it was mostly Freedom rigs. It was 17 shots. They were very, very challenging, and we had to do them inside a very, very tight time frame. So again, it was just another incredibly technically challenging project that I was one of those things where I think I maybe shed a few years off my life on The Lion King, but when it was finished, it was awesome. And it still is one of my favorite pieces because I'm a bit of a Broadway nerd, and the first time that I watched it, and this was the first time I watched it, was a rough stitch that they had thrown together for us, and I almost cried actually, because for me, being a little bit of a Broadway nerd, getting to be on stage at a Broadway show was just like my 12-year-old ultimate fantasy come to life. And I thought to myself, this is one of the best 360 video, or I had the most emotional response to that of a lot of 360 videos I've seen. So it was really an honor to work on it, and I would love to do more, capture more iconic theater performances in VR, because one of the things we talk about all the time here at VR Playhouse, I don't think we're going to get a chance to do it, but we talk about Hamilton all the time, because Hamilton is the best show on Broadway right now, if not ever. And there's this part of me that thinks, the original cast is already breaking apart. They lost one of their guys, and now Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy who wrote the piece and also stars as Hamilton, is leaving in July. And I just want to tell them, please capture this in 360 before it goes away, or at least capture one of the most iconic songs, because that's one of the things that's beautiful but also sad about theater, is that it is so temporary, and once it's gone, it's gone. And I think about, just almost from an archivist point of view, how much I would love to capture Hamilton in VR. But in any case, I think that, so if we had the opportunity to do some more of that creative archiving of iconic performances and iconic casts in VR, in theater, that would be a cool job.
That's sort of a promise of VR is being able to now not just get information through a certain frame, certain box, but now we can capture the entire environment, and sort of when it gets down to these Rico Thetas, or as you can imagine in 5 or 10 years, what everybody's going to have on them are the ability to record their moments in full 360 and archive everything, because it might go away and you want to check that out again, and then you get that, you feel like you were there, you're reliving it. And,
Totally. You feel the energy. That's what surprised me about the Lion King piece, was I felt that audience energy.
Yeah.
When the elephant walks on stage and the audience just erupts into applause, I found myself clapping too and feeling like I was there with them. And so, you know, I think, I mean, I'm sure we all agree, we're all enthusiasts here, but I definitely think you can capture energy when you're shooting cinematic 360. And so as a result, if you're doing something in the narrative side, you should be very aware of that energy. What kind of energy is being communicated to the camera, and is it a natural energy? Is it a believable energy? You know, so because it translates. Yeah.
Very cool. And the thing that made me think of Jaunt was actually not that video, but another one, Ferza.
Improvista. I know, I have trouble pronouncing it too.
And we just saw that right before in VRChat in our 360 room that VR Pill put together. All of these were played, but I caught the end of it, and this is the one that I saw in there. And so tell me a bit about that piece.
Sure. So we were approached by Catherine Day over at Jaunt. She is awesome, and she had a dream of making this piece. She was a huge fan of this all-girl mariachi band who's featured in the video, and wanted to do a Cinco de Mayo piece. And it would be our first time working with the Jaunt 1 camera, you know, their new camera. So we were eager to give it a shot and check it out for ourselves. And so we put it together the whole thing got thrown together pretty fast. I think we had a week to find the venue and coordinate everything, but luckily everybody was so gung-ho about it, we were able to get it together. And this is one of the few projects I can talk about from a 360 standpoint where the post didn't leave some PTSD, you know, because their stitching algorithm is good and the camera was pretty easy to use. And we were definitely pleased with our experience using the Jaunt 1 camera. The only issue with the Jaunt camera is you have to work inside the Jaunt ecosystem to use it, so it's not something we can like realistically rent or use on jobs, but I would be totally down to work with them again on another project. And you know, like I said, I thought that the camera was good. So that and so that was our experience with the Cinco de Mayo piece. I think we put the whole thing together in a week and a half when it was all said and done, and it came out very nicely. And we worked with a couple. I want to give a little shout out to our sound team, who I believe are like some of the best in the business. Echo VR is the name of their company. They do 360 sound. We've worked with them now on the last, I think, 4 or 5 projects, and they're the bomb. And so they did all the sound for that piece. They're doing the sound for the debut on Tuesday. They're doing the sound for our this Red Bull piece that's coming out soon. And anyway, if you ever need 360 audio, Echo.
Echo VR, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what it is. It's a musical performance. It's, you know, happening in front of you. There's dancers that come out. You know, it's really cool. I can't wait to actually share it with a bunch of my friends. I think they're gonna dig it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks. And it's something it's nice. It's nice in the headset. And we talk about this. Music videos are so what we're releasing on Tuesday is a music video, and you know, music videos are perfect for this right now because of their length, and it's a perfect venue in which to experiment. And so I think, I just think that music videos are great for where we're at right now in terms of making content.
Burning Man. I saw the Burning Man video you guys did a while ago, and I've always dreamt of going to Burning Man. Obviously, you've gone to Burning Man. Probably your team.
Yes. Actually, it's become a bit of a tradition now to bring the team to Burning Man, and last year we didn't go to VRLA because it was happening during Burning Man. We basically shut down the whole company during like the 2 weeks around Burning Man. This year, actually, we're taking a year off. So you kind of sometimes when you do Burning Man, I think you need to do that once in a while. We've been going for 3 years in a row now, and so we're taking 1 year off. We'll be back next year, but Burning Man. So we were just getting into VR. I mean, we're Burning Man 2014. So, you know, picture that timeline I told you earlier. We'd done Sundance January of 2014. Now we're at the end of August of 2014, and we've made some 360 videos and had some success with it. And Ian, who I tell you is obsessive and crazy, he really wanted to shoot some 360 video at Burning Man, which again, like you want to talk about technical challenges. Here we're in an environment with no electricity, no resources, dust everywhere. So Ian and I, we build a yurt every year. So Ian's my husband too. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So Ian's my co-founder, my husband. We do everything together. So we build a geodesic yurt out of reflective foam board every year at Burning Man. And so we have this big yurt, and then we also have these little solar panels that we put on the outside of it. And so that's how we were charging, using the solar panels on the yurt. And we had our laptops and a little tiny production setup inside, and we went and we shot a ton of content, which when we came back, we realized the camera settings were wrong on most of the footage, which again, early 360 video hardship lessons. He had them set on, it's a classic mistake, I think he had them set on 16:9 instead of 4:3. And so in the end, when we got our footage back, it had these tiny little black triangles and everything. And he was, devastated. But what we ended up getting was, and we had it's so funny. I mean, I don't know if there's any point in ever doing anything with that footage, but we had the footage was still pretty entertaining. There was just little black triangles all around it. But then we did have this one great time lapse that came out perfectly. And so that was the piece that we ended up moving forward with. And we partnered with a really amazing DJ named Opio. There was a song that I thought was just perfect, and I asked Opio if we could use it, and he said, as long as you're not making money on it, you can. And then we contacted Burning Man org, and we said, we want to make this video, and usually you need to get permission ahead of time to shoot at Burning Man, and it's very hard to get permission to publish anything from Burning Man. But luckily, we're part of this amazing old school camp at Burning Man called Campoline, and it turned out that the guy who's in charge of deciding what content gets approved and what doesn't had apparently camped at our camp in the past. And loved our camp, and so he was like, "Oh, Campoline." He's like, He's like, "You're all set." And so we just had this amazing, fun piece of content that we had approval to go wide with, and it's essentially a time lapse, but we play with time, so it gets fast and it slows down at key moments, and it goes from day to night and then backwards again from night to day, and it gives the illusion that you've been there all night when really it's just a time lapse and then a time lapse in reverse. And that was the first piece that we published, and for a long time was our only real work out there, because then we were doing a lot of client work where VRChat, when you're starting your business, you don't have a lot of leverage. So we did a lot of work where our name wasn't on it. And so for a while, it was just like the one piece that had our name on it, even though we were making other content. And people still come up and talk about it. It's funny. And we love it. A real fun memory I have of that piece was showing it then to our campmates, when they came down to visit, and letting them go back to Burning Man at our camp. And one guy actually, no joke, did a whip it while in the headset. So he's doing a nitrous balloon while he's watching the Burning Man video, and he had a really fantastic time. So anyway, good times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing about those sorts of stories. And when I was at SVVR, one guy was talking about when he was in Tilt Brush, he was on mushrooms and he was just in there for hours, and his mind was blown. And I can only imagine. So I can't wait to have those experiences.
I've actually really always wanted to recreate a nitrous trip in a VR, because it's the perfect amount of time. It's 90 seconds, and I just feel like you could do a really fun recreation of a nitrous experience inside VR. So if anything, our creative director, Dylan, who's been with us since the beginning, he's a real stickler for story. Like he's hardcore about story and substance, and he's always like, if I have to hear you guys describe one more idea as trippy, I'm going to throw my computer on the ground. Like he's just like, you have to have more than just trippy. I'm like, but it's the perfect length of time, 90 seconds. Anyway.
Or DMT trip.
Exactly. These are the things we're like, I got an idea, Dylan. The DM teacher, he's like, okay, but what happens? Why am I doing the
Everything
DMT trip?
happens to you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How long have you been in the desert? Why did you go there? That whole thing. So anyway, it's good. It's good.
Very, very cool. I had a camera. Let's kind of talk a little bit about cameras, but maybe you could just sort of point out like what's a good camera for the average user to buy, like a Ricoh Theta maybe, or maybe the Gear 360 thing, and what's good for an amateur, maybe $2,000 prosumer, I guess. But then also like if you want to be an indie filmmaker and start doing something, maybe give us some cameras that people should get.
Sure.
At those levels.
Sure. The Gear 360 is great. It's super user-friendly. We have one here, and I would say is definitely better than the Ricoh Theta. So if you're looking to get into VR, get your hands on a Gear 360, and you can start making some cool, great content with that for $350. And it stitches itself, so you don't have to worry about any of that trouble I was discussing earlier. Also, DJ, who's our production director, loves the Kodak rigs. We used to do modified GoPros. Now he tells me those are out. It's all about Kodaks. He loves the Kodak rigs.
Heard that too.
Then let's see a little bit. I mean, I still think that the Freedom rigs are good. I mean, they're definitely like AutoPano has improved their stitching software so tremendously that stitching for things like the Freedom 360 has gotten infinitely easier since last year. So if you're using that or you were interested in that, I can definitely recommend it. And then on the really high end, I just think that the GoPro Odyssey is the jam. I've seen all of the high-end cameras, and for the price point, which is $15,000, the GoPro Odyssey looks amazing. You still have to comp in the top and the bottom, but if you've been doing the kind of work that we've been doing, comping in the top and the bottom seems like nothing, compared to doing the post on some of the projects that we've done. And so you still have to comp in the top and the bottom, and you'll still have to maybe do some tweaks and some color for sure, but really it takes a huge amount of the workload out of the process. And the only thing with that is it's hard to get those. So we're part of the early developers program for that, and I do get the impression that they're coming off the line a little bit, like slowly. I think they're hard to make, honestly. I don't think that making these 360 cameras, even if you're a big company like GoPro, I think it's still challenging. And so they're taking their time with each one that comes off the line. And I can tell you that when we got ours, there was a small issue when we first started using it. And GoPro flew 2 of their team members down to LA the next day to help us fix the problem, which I thought was incredible. And then immediately Google offered us a camera from the YouTube space as a backup. So I got to say, the customer service on the GoPro, Google, way to go, team. And we're just, I just can't wait to start making stuff, with it. So, yeah. That's my camera summary.
Awesome. That's great. I can't wait to see content made with the Odyssey, which I think there's a couple things that I saw, but more to come.
Yes, for sure. And we also just got, actually, speaking of fun new toys, we got the Sennheiser Ambisonic 360 mic that they just came out with. They're calling it their virtual reality microphone. So between that and the GoPro Odyssey, I'm feeling like we've got a pretty solid, 360 set now, and it just is so heartwarming after coming from the years of hacked together solutions to have these really professional companies working in our space now. So, yeah.
Did you think it was going to happen this fast? Since you were playing with the thing in 2014, now
actually, if anything, I think everybody thought it was going to happen faster than it did. We were told, Ian, again, being the crazy obsessive genius that he is, really wanted to build a camera right away. He was looking at what the solutions, and he was dying to get his hands on building a camera, and we were constantly told by people in the know, just no, don't build a camera, just wait, they're going to have some amazing camera solutions right around the bend. And The truth is that had he really gone into building his camera at the end of 2014, it probably would have been really helpful last year to have our own design, you know, and that tailored just the way that he wanted it and that kind of thing. So, you know, we kept, but it's in the end, you know, also I think we've seen with a lot of these companies, like it would have been a good play for us from a content production standpoint, not necessarily from a, oh, we're going to build a camera and then sell it for a ton of money and that kind of thing, because, you know, obviously the tools become eventually open source and everybody can make them, or what, you know, it's not, you know, so it would, yeah, anyways, we didn't end up making camera. We used the solutions that were out there, and I do think we, you know, it took until really just, I think until we just got the Gear 360 and then the GoPro Odyssey that a somewhat professional, somewhat to very professional fully stitching camera solution became available. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit to, like, you know, again, people getting into VR storytelling on some things they should be thinking about, or tips, some maybe challenges that you've overcome, stuff like that?
So it depends on what, whether it's a documentary, whether it's a narrative, or that kind of thing. I do want to say right off the bat that I think there are no rule books for this. I think that everybody should just try whatever crazy, beautiful thing that they have in their imagination, because none of us grew up watching VR content, so none of us have a framework to, you know, work from on that, and we're all writing the rule book. So I want to say that up front, you know, but I think that, you know, from a conceptual standpoint, I like to imagine it more like a memory or a dream when I'm imagining it to begin with, versus, you know, I think some people with a film background have to break their training of picturing things in the framed video and in terms of shot, because that's
and
not...
the direction a little bit, like, you don't have so much control of that, but it's like a dream. I really like that.
Yeah, like a memory or a dream, or even a drug trip, if you've done that, you know, that's it's about kind of discovery and playing with reality and subconscious, and with you know, alternate or heightened realities. And we talk about, you know, for us, and again, I think you can do this with documentary too, but definitely in the narrative, we're not trying to necessarily recreate reality as it is. We want to make it somehow a heightened reality. So whether that's playing with the subconscious in interesting ways, perception, or whether it's integrating, you know, visual CG elements and aspects that you wouldn't be able to have if you were in this real life scenario. So so there's that. I think, you know, it's interesting, even though horror is going to be a huge market for VR, and I think, and there's tons of companies already starting to take a crack at it, I've been really adamant at VR Playhouse about us not doing horror, and it's because I really believe very strongly in the power of this medium and how it affects the neural pathways, and I don't think we know that much about it yet, and I personally just don't feel comfortable putting people inside those experiences right now. And honestly, to be frank, I'm not a big horror person, so that's easy for me to say, but the kinds of experiences that we're interested in creating are those that are a little more on the expansive side, or joyful, or exciting adventure, that kind of realm. But I think that, so that's just more about our personal sort of philosophy on content. It's like
Playhouse.
Exactly, it's a playhouse. It's fun, exactly, and we always want someone to come out of the experience, out of the headset, watching something we've made, feeling more joyful or richer or somehow from that experience. And I think if you can start to think about agency and interactivity, that's a really great direction to be heading in, because it's one of the things that will really set this medium apart from other mediums that have come before it, and allow the user to have a very transformational experience. So, you know, I think things that work well are when you give the user some sort of agency or some sort of purpose. What are they doing in there? You know, what are they looking for? What should they be noticing? Is there a way to help them is there a way, is it something where if it's just a 360 video, are you giving them things to notice inside that 360 video, so if they're paying attention they can see that stuff, or do they actually have some agency where they can make choices, and where do those choices lead them? So that's some of the stuff on the creative side. I also encourage people. I don't feel like that we've even begun to max out in terms of the creative limitations of 360 video, and already people are moving on. I would be really interested in seeing what kinds of stories people could come up with for 360 video, and I think, and then obviously there's always the first person. I'm really into first person experiences, but we always have the question, then what about the body? It's always this thing.
I love the first person, yeah.
Yeah, I love the first person too, and so, for us, we're kind of in the no body camp, actually.
Just don't look at your body.
Well, just don't have a body. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so we have a piece that we'll be publishing, which was a very early cinematic experimental piece called First Person. It's a cinematic series, etc. You are a person experiencing the world, but you don't have a body. You look down and you just see the chair, you just see the bench, and I'm okay with that, because then you can kind of decide what your body looks like in your own mind, and you can just focus on the actual story or the person that's talking to you, and you kind of get over that. And they're not looking at you like you don't have a body. They're looking at you like you have one. So that's, until we get a better solution, I'm personally in the no body camp for the VR originals that we're making right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes me think of two things. One, Enter the Void, the movie. You've seen that before?
Love it.
I love the first person stuff and everything else going on in that movie. It's so great. And one of the pictures that Chris posted on Twitter about the show tonight that had this crazy array of cameras around your head. Oh, what's going on there?
Yes.
Trying to get a first-person thing, or just put it on for fun?
That is the Mobius rig, which you can rent at Radiant Images in Los Angeles. I put it on for fun at Radiant Images one day, and I took a picture, and it went viral on social or on Twitter, which was really, it doesn't surprise me now that I think about it. People love gear, and it was something people hadn't seen before. The Mobius is a solution if you're trying to shoot first person, but it is a challenge to stitch. It's not. I wouldn't take it on unless you have a big budget and you really think that is the way that you want to try to tell a story. It's also very heavy, so your actors aren't going to be able to wear it and do a lot of crazy stuff. But it is a solution, and yeah, if that's your thing, go to Radiant Images.
That's pretty cool. I mean, for me, being able to, like, the empathy part of being an experience, being in a first-person experience, being treated the way that, or just being in somebody else's shoes means a lot for what I want out of VR and this kind of content. And I'm looking.
Agreed. I mean, but of course we're all in VRChat right now, so of course we would think that, right? I think that the kinds of people that are attracted to social VR, they want connection, they want intimacy, and that's what that first person experience does. So I'm 100% in the same boat as you, Gunter. And for me, there's something about having a person looking right at me and talking to me. But that being said, you have to be very careful about the performances. I think a lot of the acting in VR that I've seen has been pretty bad, and part of it is that it's not realistic. It needs to be really, really realistic, because if there's even a hint of falseness in the performance, it not only takes me out of the experience, I get like a creepy feeling. I don't like it. And so I like to work. So when we work with actors of our choosing, I personally think that the absolute sweet spot is a theater-trained actor or an experienced theater actor that has film and TV experience as well. They can do the natural face, they can do the very natural actions with their face and the tone of their voice like they do in the TV and film, but then they have the physical presence and the stamina, and also I would say the stamina of a theater actor, and also the seriousness of craft that it actually takes to do good VR performances. In film, you do one take and then you cut. I mean, you could just go, look out the window for a second. Okay, cut. And And there are a lot of people who've made very successful acting careers by just making good faces for like a quick moment here and there, or saying a line really well, one or two lines, and then again they cut. So, but in a VR experience, you're going to have to do a longer take. Even if you, at the very minimum, you're going to have to do 15 seconds, but more likely you're going to have to do longer than that. And so you need to deliver a convincing performance for that full 15 seconds, or someone's going to fall out of it. And so that's why I think you have to have the best actors will have some serious theater experience for VR.
Very interesting. Cool. So you're involved in so many different things. You're also on the board of advisors for Shift. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about
Shift. Well, if you're familiar with the Women in VR group on Facebook, it is an active and excited community of over, I think, 2,500 members at this point, and it was started by Jen Duong and Julie Young. Jen Duong works with Max Sennett Studios here in Los Angeles as their VR head, and then Julie Young is one of the many badasses at Emblematic Group, which is one of my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of great companies in VR, but I really love Emblematic. I love the people there, and so they started the Women in VR group, and it was very inspiring to them to see that there were so many women that were excited about working in VR, and so they founded Shift as a nonprofit that its sole purpose is to bring underrepresented voices into VR content making. And they're starting with women, though that's definitely not the extent of their ambitions. They're just interested in underrepresented groups. So that would mean international, and that would also mean minorities or different socioeconomic classes. And they are, I don't want to steal their thunder, but they have an announcement coming up about their first initiative to do that work. So I think eventually, they will be, almost like a fund for content, and then they will allocate that funding to the right projects that support the mission. And I was asked to be on a very awesome board of advisors. I was shocked and honored when they called me, honestly, to be on with people like Shannon Gans and Nani De La Pena, and still to this day, I'm a little like, what? I was just like, I wasn't sure what made them call me, other than, I don't know. But I'm really grateful to be an advisor for them, and I'm happy to give them any advice that they think might be helpful.
That's awesome. I assume they reached out because you're so cool. That makes.
I think the cool thing, for sure. I did also like
somebody really cool on the team.
Actually, the women in VR are cool. I mean, I think that's actually been the most not surprising, but like it is a surprising and gratifying thing to me about becoming a part of this community is the women friends that I'm developing are so much more like the kinds of friends I've always wanted to have. They're smart, they're passionate, they're hilarious, they're driven, they're weird, they're freaky. It's just like So like for me, the women in VR are just some of the coolest women I've had the pleasure of knowing, and I'm so grateful that this is the community I've fallen into. We started talking earlier about the public radio world and all these things, these different areas where I was trying to sort of find my career center, and now I'm like, oh, hell yeah, like I look around, not just with the VR women, but the VR men too. Like VR is the best community of people you could ever ask for for a career, and I hope we keep it, and I think we will. I think we're a bunch of dreamers, we're dreamers, and we have vision, and we're really trying to do something different here, and I think that spirit will drive this community to become its own powerful force in the world.
Absolutely. Well said. I have one more thing to say, but I want to remind the audience that we're going to do a question, so if anybody has a question in just a moment, please go ahead and start thinking about that. And what was the last two guests that I've had the last 2 weeks have both been women, so it's been really great to have Sarah Vogel, that I mentioned before the show, and Michelle Osario, who's also doing VR storytelling. So
awesome.
I love talking to women in VR and not in VR, of course, too. But it's been really cool that I didn't plan it that way, and it's just Super cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being, such an advocate of women in VR, Gunter. That's awesome. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I will say this also. I said this. I did a women panel at Digital Hollywood, and I'm very reluctant to make things too gender oriented, because if there's anything that we in our futurist VR communities know, it's that gender is becoming more fluid, and boys like things that are supposed to be girl things, and girls like things that are supposed to be boy things. And there's a guy in an avatar right now dressed as a sexy woman right across from me. And so, I think that it's important to involve underrepresented groups, because, it's weird if one group gets to do things more than another, just in general. But I think that as a society, I'd like to be moving away from being too strict about those things to begin with. Like, let's just start kind of recognizing that we're all complex, complicated human beings with all kinds of masculine and feminine qualities. So, yeah, I just want to throw that out there for the record.
I've got a bunch of them. I'm pretty weird, and I'm super complex, so I hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
All right, anybody have a question for Christina?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Yeah.
Oh.
So on your website it says that VR Playhouse creates virtual reality and augmented reality. So I'm wondering if you have augmented reality content that you've been working on already?
That's a great question, and the answer is we don't have any content publicly available. It's something that we can definitely do in-house, and we have the developers to do it. We don't, at this moment, have anything on the original content side of things that's geared towards augmented, but it is a service that if a client was looking for, we could do. So that's why it's on the website. But it's more just to be like, hey, if that's your thing, we can do it. But it's not, I would say, our core competency necessarily. It's just not that hard to make.
Okay, cool. And my other question was, like for your production pipeline, do you have like a whole bunch of projects going through at once, or you just kind of like focus on one at a time and put all your effort into one?
It depends. We had a really big job that I'm still not able to talk about publicly, that for 2 months in January and February took up the entire company. So that was I think the only time that's happened, where we had something that was so big and so all-consuming that we just had the entire company working on this one thing. Most of the time we have at least 3 projects going on simultaneously at VR Playhouse, and that's how I like it, gets cranking,
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 10,000 polygons.
Is your content, do you shoot your content in 2D or 3D 360?
A lot of our content until recently was monoscopic, and that was for a lot of reasons. And if you ever saw me on a panel, I was always like a big advocate of mono, because I am really sensitive to stereoscopic, any kind of motion. I'm just sensitive to all of it. And so a lot of the stereo gave me headaches, the stuff that was out there. It was also a lot more challenging to stitch. And so a lot of our work up until recently was mono, and we did some stitching of stereo on other people's work for post-production. But in-house we were all mono. And now we have the the GoPro Odyssey camera, which is stereo. So we will be now doing all of our stuff in stereo 360. But the Google Jump is one of the first cameras these things that I've seen where I really think it looks good, and it actually looks believable to me and doesn't fall into the uncanny valley. So, because I guess with mono for me it was also a little bit like it was flat, but it was all consistently flat. So my imagination, especially if it was high resolution, which all of ours really was, and we worked very hard to cram as many pixels in as possible, it was my imagination would put the depth there, and it was this consistent, beautiful mono video. And then I would watch stereo stuff, and it just didn't look like real life to me, but it had depth, and so it was just a little jarring for me. Plus I would get a headache sometimes, and so the Google Jump camera, or the GoPro Odyssey camera, was the first piece that I looked at. I thought, oh wow, this actually looks pretty close to real life, and wouldn't make me have that feeling. So
Now, the 180 content looks really good as well, and you can get much higher resolution video in 180 versus 360 because you're not stretching anything out. Have you guys experimented with 180 content?
No, and I think you're totally right. We haven't done any 180 content though. It's been all 360.
Okay.
The trade-off. You want to transport people to these other places, and the resolution is going to get better. So I think learning to tell stories in that environment probably makes the most sense to figure out.
Yeah, and you can also, another thing that we haven't seen a lot of people play with, which is cool, is playing with 360 and then other things. You know, moving from something that's framed to maybe something that's 180 to something that's 360 and back again, and it could play into the story in some way. So we haven't seen a lot of that, but I mean, you're basically just talking about a canvas of 360 degrees around you, and you can play inside that canvas any way that you want. But I think, yeah, you're right. To get full, true immersion, 360 is probably the best move. And that's also why, from the get-go, we were really adamant about not having a hole at the bottom. We like killed ourselves making these videos that didn't have holes in the bottom, because I just hated that when we looked down, it took me out. I was like, what's that hole there? What's your company logo doing there? You know, I was just like, I couldn't get down with it. And so we just worked really hard and put a bottom in. And yeah.
Cool.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We'll start with Bubba Fret, and then we'll go to Adam J. What's up, Bubba?
Okay, well, I'll be quick. Well, earlier you were talking about that you said that you thought there were like 4 tiers of content that you guys were making. You mentioned just straight 360, 360 interactive, and then I think I missed the other 2. What were
yeah, it's funny. There's one I feel like that's missing, but there's I think a weird hybrid at the 3rd level where you can blend 360 video and CG and game engine, you know, into something like I said we made with the surrogate. So there's, I would say, a hybrid, and then there's just the full explorable CG worlds, like robot repair or something along those lines. What I think, you know, I think that in the first one, which is the 360 video, we should probably also include 360 CG in that, because it's still a 360 video. You have a fixed point and you can look around inside, but it's all CG. So, and it's harder to make, but also really fun. So I say 360 video, 360 CG, 360 interactive video, hybrid, and then full explorable CG world.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Adam.
Yeah, so would a Samsung 360 be sufficient if I wanted to help a theater company capture performances for either posterity or for marketing? And if so, would you just try to hide it in the props like mid-stage?
I absolutely think that the 360, the Gear 360 camera would be perfect for that kind of purpose. And you know, you're saying, so if it's during the actual performance, yeah, I mean, I think hiding it in the prop is a very, very interesting solution. You know, I know with the Lion King piece, they actually had an audience come in. They decided they were just going to do the one song, and so they brought in a special audience just for the taping, and they did the opening, I think, maybe 5 or 6 times for this special audience. So that's one way to do it too, where you can have a little more creative control to play around on stage and not worry if the camera's being seen.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Hey, Claw.
Okay, so since you're in the 360 like film business, I'm sure you must know like about like the light fields that are being developed. You know, light field photography, light film videos. I mean light field, and that's certainly not here yet because that's like totally like the state of the art. I'm just curious what you know about it, like what's the time frame for that kind of thing, coming out, and have you seen like some light field demos at the trade shows and so forth?
Yeah, we are definitely very familiar with light field here at VR Playhouse, and I think that the cameras are getting a lot closer. You know, I think we are going to start seeing the first pieces of content coming out very soon that have used light field technology to capture video footage. It is still a little while away from being practical for a real shoot, I think, with that, you know, with a lot of moving parts, but I think it could be integrated for select, small, well thought out pieces. And I think that, yeah, I don't think it's all hype. I know that they are testing and doing a lot of work and putting a lot of money into that behind the scenes. So yeah, it still will be very, very technically challenging for whoever undertakes that, and it really is the most advanced. I'm trying to think of the right. It's just the most advanced of the 360 video efforts. It's the equivalent of going to the North Pole, you know, like that. Like it's like you have to have that kind of adventurous spirit, I think, to take it on right now. But
I think in the future that's like the holy grail of recording, because imagine in the future everyone has like their little pocket device, like a smartphone or something, and people will literally just record actual reality, and then other people can just relive it. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
I can't wait too. I mean, it's absolutely the promise of cinematic virtual reality, and you know, it's you know, this is what being in the early days of VR is about. It's about desperately wanting those tools to come faster than they will, and eventually we'll be, you know, I'm 32 now, and I'll probably be 45, and when the thing is really ready to go or something, and there'll be some 20-year-old that gets to play with it right out of the gate, you know, and we'll you know, that'll see how it goes. We'll have to go, oh, you guys don't even know how good you have it, you know, you could do walk around VR, you know, and like we had to stitch together videos by hand. But
this will happen next year, though. The way things are going, it'll happen next year.
Well, that's the thing, though.
Too. Like I can like feel your enthusiasm, like in your tone and everything, and like how much you have to say about the topic. Isn't it fun being in something that's kind of like new, like a pioneer, than something where you probably wouldn't even be known in your field?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that was honestly one of the most exciting things about getting into this in the first place. You know, here I was working in documentary film, and Ian was working in theater, and DJ was working in movies, and Jordan was working in VFX and animation, and we were, and it was a little like, what are we going to do that hasn't already been done so amazingly by people who have come before us? And even if we were capable of making something truly incredible, how are we going to get noticed inside this really crazy, you know, competitive, perhaps broken system, you know, depending on who you talk to, you know, and so...
Yep. So like a giant universe, and VR is a small world, at least at the moment.
Yes, it is. And so, yeah, that was absolutely, for us, one of the most exciting parts about it was being creative people, just having the chance to do something new and do something great and make a difference in terms of the work we make, making a cultural impact. And so that was, I think, part of the reason we were able to attract the incredible team that we now have, because it was that sort of mission of making work that has a cultural impact that we you know, we haven't gotten there yet. We're still building this company, but it was that mission that really attracted the right kind of people to VR Playhouse. So we weren't like, yeah, man, we're going to make so much money in VR. It's going to be awesome. You know, it's just like, or, you know, we were just, or like, man, I'm going to get so famous doing this. You know, we were like, no, like, we're going to make beautiful things that change the world. And everyone was like, cool, I want to do that too.
Actually, I think because it's so new, I think anybody who is trying probably has a good chance to be famous or make money.
Yeah, it would be nice. But I mean, the fame thing, it's probably a weird thing, but having money is awesome, because you can do stuff with money, and you can make stuff with money, and you can work with the people you want to work with, and
maybe in the future your company will be doing like a multi-million-dollar production. Who knows? You could.
Oh, I absolutely know we will. There's no question about that. I mean, every project we do is bigger than the last, and I mean, we're really not that far from a multi-million production. And then when people start being able to make money in VR, because right now there's no revenue for content, but when people start to be able to make money, then it's going to be a whole new ball game, because you can actually go to investors and say, look, this piece made it back, you know, $5 million last year. This piece made $10 million, or who knows, it could be way more than that.
That's what's cool, because VR, it hasn't even taken off yet. It's just kind of like gaining steam.
Totally. It's about hanging in there and trying to do the best work that you can while it's still an emerging ecosystem.
Awesome.
Thanks. Good answer.
Great. We could do maybe one more question, maybe. I don't know, I saw Nebulous. Yeah. What's up, Nebulous?
Cool. I had to go for a second. Did anyone ask about photogrammetry?
No, no one's asked about photogrammetry yet, but...
Are there any drawbacks or anything that, are you interested in using it, or?
Oh, absolutely. We've been using photogrammetry on the last couple projects that we've been doing, actually, and I think it is, I mean, it's perfect for VR. You can capture a physical environment and bring it into a virtual space. That's hugely valuable. And, you know, there's companies that are doing photogrammetry exclusively. We do it at VR Playhouse, and it's one of the services that we offer, but there are companies that are just doing it exclusively. I think we should, actually, one of those companies that's doing some really cool stuff with photogrammetry is a company called Marshmallow Laser Feast. I don't know if a lot of you have heard of them, but they have a great company name. Great. Yeah, Marshmallow Laser Feast. So they are capturing in photogrammetry like important trees. And as a character from Avatar, you should really appreciate this. That they're going around and capturing important trees. They did a scan of the world's largest tree. They did this scan of the world's oldest tree. And I just think that is the coolest thing. I think we should be doing things like that. We should also be capturing what I think are endangered places that may not be around or may not exist as they look now, and capturing them for, you know, posterity and archiving them so that we can go visit them again when they look different. So
I remember when Duncan Trussell was on, we talked about this sort of technology leading to sort of an ability to time travel, because we've archived in 360, maybe in light fields, you know, everything, or at some point that's what we're doing, so you can sort of completely put yourself back in time, and once technology is like beyond belief, hundreds of years from now, it'll definitely be something like that.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So do you mind if I ask one question on this? Well, a statement and a question. So the whole idea there that it'd be really cool if we could have documentation of places that we love that could possibly fall down tomorrow. That's part of what I do, and it's a really cool thing to do. But the question I have, though, is what method are you using for the photogrammetry?
Well, the guys typically what they do is they take a ton of photos. You know, if you're taking pictures of a person, somewhere between 400 and 1,000 photos of that person from every single angle. And then they bring it into a program, and honestly I forget which program it is because I'm not the person at the company that does this, but they bring it into a program that then helps assemble those photos into something you can bring into a 3D software. So I imagine that most people are doing it that way. Is that how you're doing it?
Oh, no, I think I'm confusing the term, because
okay.
Confusing term. Yeah, you're right. Photogrammetry, photo, perfect. You're great. Thank you.
Yeah, and then also there's like the LiDAR scanning technology, which, you know, we don't have a LiDAR scanner right now at VR Playhouse, but we are friends with some people in VR named Master of Shapes, another great company. I love like throwing out these company names, by the way, because like these are our friends. They're amazing. They're great companies too, and like anyway, so I just always love to be able to plug when I can. But yeah, Master of Shapes, we've worked with them on a project where they did LiDAR scanning, and it depending on what you're doing, it can be a very useful part of building your piece.
I actually want to throw something in about New Hampshire, that we have a community member that I don't know if you're familiar with the Old Man in the Mountain, New Hampshire.
Yeah, of course. Well, I lived in New Hampshire for 2 years, so
So we have a guy up here, he's actually a community member as well. He just made a cardboard application for the Parks Department that you can go to the little memorial that they have there and see the Old Man of the Mountain as it was, as it has since fallen to pieces, so it doesn't look like it used to anymore. So through virtual reality, he's made a little memorial to it. And actually, we might see it in VRChat someday.
That warms my heart. It really does.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for breaking me into VRChat, too. I'm definitely going to come back and hang out with you guys. This is so cool.
If you want to plug anything, I mean, we of course plug the website, VRPlayhouse.com.
Yeah. Well, yeah, follow us on Twitter. That's our big one. We also are on Instagram. We put a lot of effort into the Twitter and the Instagram. They're just VR Playhouse. And then check it out. Look at Wired on Tuesday. Check out Wired on Tuesday.
Will do.
Awesome.
Sweet. All right, Yay. And then Bob, he's always, he's part of another podcast, and I always like to give him a moment to let us know if he was able to record or put anything out, or were you not able to shepherd everybody together to record?
Yeah, we recorded a week ago, but today I released the podcast that we did at the end of SVR, so I posted that up today. And then I've started editing the podcast that we did not this past week and the weekend before with Jason, and we had Reverend Kyle join us because Matt was away. So yeah, you can follow us at LHVR Podcast on Twitter or Facebook, and we are on like every single audio platform
in the universe.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
That's awesome. Left-Handed VR Podcast, it's great. And as far as VRChat announcements, karaoke night is this Saturday. We're going to be doing it every other Saturday. It's been so much fun. We used to do it a while ago. We brought it back, and it's just rocking and rolling. So much fun. Sundays, we have our European meetup and U.S. meetup. To find out about these events and times, go to our subreddit /r/VRChat. And there's also a link to join our Slack community. There's 120 people there. A lot of all this content you've seen here comes from Unity. So if you're looking to learn how to use Unity, or you're a person that is already familiar with Unity and you want to make content, come out here on the meetups and join our Slack community so you keep the dialogue going and learn from each other. And it's like a family. And then support
Gunter,
me.
Just a few more things for events. So tomorrow night's going to be Culture Night, and I believe we'll probably be doing England. So we'll go to a few different rooms related to London and talk about culture and stuff like that. Friday night, we're going to be testing charades probably, and it'll just be more testing of charades. So, yeah, definitely. Show up.
What it comes down to is VRChat's getting more and more to the point where there's people here every night. It can be hit or miss, of course, because it's not like there's thousands of people out there in VR coming to these things. But check out the events. There's always something going on. Get in contact just through the subreddit or through Slack, or come in here. Talk to everybody. We're all friendly. And follow me at Gunters Universe, guntersuniverse.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. It's a really great way to get a reminder that the show's happening and learn who the guest is for that day. And if you want, you can also support the show by donating to Patreon, my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Gunter. I cannot thank the people that donate every single week to the show to make it possible and to grow it. And I'm getting to live my VR dream as well. So thank you to them. Thank you again to Christina. Thanks to the Gunters Universe team and everybody that came out here. I love you guys. It's so awesome. Thanks for coming out. And everybody that watches this on YouTube. That's pretty much it. That's it. Have a great rest of the week. See you next Tuesday. Hey, dog.
Oh, yeah. Good night, everybody.
Great show. Play music. I have outro music, but it's not going to work for some reason because I need to alt-tab because now I'm live.
All right.
There we go. That's the show, everybody. Woo! I do want to bring the dummy down here. Where's the dummy at? I was here the whole show, like Motnab. Hey, Motnab. You've been wanting some attention this whole show because you've been flying everywhere around.
Yeah, freaking out.
You love Gunter.
Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Come on.
Take it like a sausage.
Oh, no,
Amazing. All right, I gotta run.
right,
Thank you
Christina.
guys so much.
Cool, thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.